Ep9. That's just fine. Mic check, mic check. Welcome everyone to JnJ Ep9. This is episode 9. Our topic today is pets. We're going to do something a little bit different today, which is an interview format. Jakin does not know the questions I'm going to ask him, but I thought it would be appropriate because he, after all, is the current pet owner between the two of us, and probably more of an enthusiast, although, just for the record, I have been a dog owner as a child. Unfortunately, was way too young and just inexperienced and immature to properly raise that dog, and it was a sad ending, but lucky. I love you. I miss you. I hope that you are in dog heaven somewhere. All right? Oh, by the way, we didn't murder him or kill him. We did have to give him up.
You just ate him?
Yeah, we just ate him. Well, that's actually stealing my thunder. I was about to ask you about... Well, hey, that's a preview of what's to come. So listen, Lucky is a dog that as a child, my brother and I had. It was a half German Shepherd Collie mix, and we had to give him up to an animal shelter, sadly. I don't really remember why, but I just assumed because we weren't taking care of him very well and my parents weren't around.
You couldn't keep it, right?
Yeah. So let's jump into our interview. I thought to work on perhaps our fatal flaw, which is concision. I will give a table topics-esque ode to Toastmasters, 1 to 2 minute maximum, with a 30-second grace period. I have questions here. Now they start pretty basic, and then they get a little difficult to answer. Okay, a little more unusual, perhaps. So without further ado, I'm going to get my timer ready. You can take us out of Toastmasters, but you can't take the Toastmasters out of us. First question. Tell us about your current pet, Joy.
Joy is a Japanese Spitz and Pomeranian mix. She looks more like a Spitz than Pome, but almost 2/3 the size of a Spitz, so yeah, pretty average. As a result, she looks exactly like a doll, but alive, and when she is lying on the floor, she sometimes looks like a lump or a pillow. Now, she is 5 years old. We brought her home in 2017. Biggest reason was when my father and I and my brother, we were all busy with our work and school. My mother would usually be the one left at home feeling lonely. My parents had been considering getting a pet for years, and somewhere along the way they had settled for an aquarium of goldfish. But then 3 years later, they went ahead and got a dog. The purpose of bringing Joy home on that day in 2017 was mainly to bring up the mood for my mother. But she ended up bringing joy to all of our family members, and now we consider her a family member, and you can't distinguish just because she's a different species that she's lesser. Our family thinks of her just like another family member.
A different species, but not necessarily lesser. Let's come back to that. That's a foreshadow yet again. And thank you for that backstory. You know, I don't remember actually the exact moment when you got the dog, nor why she's called Joy, but now I and the world being you, know.
It's sort of fitting because our Korean last name is Jo. And Joy sort of makes it sound like her last name is also Jo.
So her Korean name is Joy.
Well, Jo-E.
Joy. So I knew that wouldn't be enough time to fully get into that topic. So
follow up.
Yeah, you just read my mind. What is your fondest memory with Joy?
Fondest memory? Wow. We believe that dogs have an average lifespan of roughly 12 to 15 years. And Joy is 5, so she's currently lived a third of her life. So I guess we can say in human years, she's in her late 30s or...
Well, I thought it was just times 7. Is that not standard in Korea?
I don't know about that. I thought it was times 4.
Let's round to 5.5, shall we?
I guess if it's times 7, then she's...
International dog age 35.
Yeah.
Here we go again with the whole age thing. But go ahead.
Yeah, we're Koreans. Okay, so I think many more fond memories are yet to come because she's only lived a third of her life. I would like to believe she's going to live 20 years, but frankly, I do quite often think of the day that we're gonna have to inevitably say goodbye to Joy, and that already breaks my heart. So I try to treasure every moment that I have with her. The best memories that I have with Joy are memories where I took her out to wherever I was going. Now, sadly, there are many places where you can't bring a pet, so more often than not, we're forced to leave her home even when we want to bring her. But when I go bike riding or go out for outdoor activities, the first thing on my mind is if I can bring Joy. And when I do, I actually ordered online from the States a small pack where I can put her in, and they have these little slits where she can put her paws through, and I can hold her on my back as I do whatever athletic activity I can do. So yeah, there was a time when it was a quite frequent occurrence when I brought her to some physical activities I was participating in.
Yeah, I remember the picture of you when you first discovered the Seoul rental bikes, which I'm a huge fan of now. Thanks to you, you're the first person to kind of, I'm sure I would have found out, but you had a picture of Joy, I think, strapped on the front or back, I don't remember, on one of those bikes.
Yeah.
So that was a classic picture. Yeah, well, let's move on here to more generally speaking for pets. What do you think are benefits? I want to say pros and cons, but let's just start with benefits.
Yeah, so I have thought about pros and cons. Benefits are that the average household age becomes younger, because as you think about as you think about the age of a family.
Yes.
When you're newlywed, your family home is neat, clean, not very messy. But then you have kids, and you start having baby stuff lying all over. And then those kids start walking around, then you have toys lying all over, and you'll occasionally get the Lego in the foot, right? It's pretty much the same with dogs too, because after my brother went into the military, our household became just strictly adults only. And there was not much, we still laughed and joked, but there was not enough laughter in the house. And when Joy came along, that gave our family members many more reasons to laugh and smile and joke and bond. And surely enough, now in our house we have toys lying around. So it's a nice feeling when you've got toys lying around the house.
Yeah, there's definitely a substitute for raising kids. I know that a friend of mine, a colleague who could not have kids, they ended up getting a dog, which I don't know the breed. It's a small one similar to the size of Joy. And that just acts sort of as a proxy many times.
Right.
I think you've also mentioned, was it you or others, I'm sure, who've said like pets are great practice, for children, for sure, but even as adults to kind of practice caretaking. And maybe if you're a selfish person, as I've been called on many occasions by my wife, and I have to agree, it forces you to have to think of the needs and wants of something else and take care of it. Which is a good thing.
And some people might take issue with the fact that we're comparing a dog to a human being, and I used to think the same way too. How dare you compare a human being to an animal? But that, I realize, is something that comes from people who had no prior experience with a pet, because it's just like children in a way. Like before you have children, you have that fear factor of, how are we going to handle the finances, the living costs of raising a child? How are we going to be able to emotionally support that child? And it was the same before we got the dog. Like, how are we going to pick up after it, or how are we going to feed it, or when everyone has to leave the house, who's going to take care of it? But it's something that you grow into once you get one. And once you have it, your life is never the same.
Let's talk about examples of pets. So typical pets for kids would be goldfish,
Cats and dogs, turtles, hamsters.
My brother had a ferret, actually.
Wow.
Which was quite an adventure.
Parrots,
birds,
parakeet.
Different kinds of birds. Especially in Korea, Javen's friend Gayun has multiple birds.
Wow.
What else? So
monkeys on some occasions. Porcupines.
The question.
Hedgehogs.
Well, let's get into that. All right. What are the best pets for kids? Would you say, or starter pets? That's really the heart of this question.
Psychologists say that any pet that requires caring for
Yeah.
is good for children and their emotional development. But I think that dogs, because dogs have this exact same emotional capacity as we humans do. So dogs' heads and their brains are much smaller than humans, but the part of the brain that handles emotions, they're the same. Meaning dogs feel exactly the same emotions that humans feel. So looking after another creature that has emotional needs is a good way of emotional development for children. A study shows that people who grew up with dogs in the house from a really young age tend to be happier than those who did not.
Your thoughts on animal rights in general, activists?
I think if you don't want to live in a perpetual state of victimizing yourself in this world, you got to learn to separate depending on circumstances. For example, like as an animal lover myself and an owner of a dog, it really breaks my heart whenever I see dogs getting hurt by other animals or people, or even other animals being hurt by other animals or people. As per animal rights movements, if someone had, say, during a hurricane, tied their dog to a post and just left him there to die in a flood, I might speak up against something like that. But against mink coats, as many people know, there are Koreans who love eating dogs, and it still happens today, even though it's not very common.
Where's the nearest dog market I can find?
I don't know.
I've been hunkering for some dog, man.
I don't know.
I've never had it, but I keep hearing about it. I just never have
try
seen
it.
it.
I've tried it once.
Okay. Do you remember where? I mean,
No, it was at home a long time ago. My grandparents really liked it.
Joy, she don't know what's coming. Just kidding.
Yeah.
All right.
The thing is, even though I love dogs, and they have special breeds of dogs that they grow to eat, and even if they are special breeds, if I had a chance to rescue one, I think I would. But at the same time, I don't condemn people who eat dogs. It's a culture. It's a dish. Some people like horses. People eat horses. Some people love cows. People eat cows. One time I was at work. I was on my way to work on foot when I was in the Air Force, and this cow that was chewing on hay saw me walking towards it, and it sort of gave me a little friendly look. Within its barn, it followed me. That was the day that I actually felt that cows also have emotions, and they sometimes get friendly moods whenever they see someone, right? But I love eating beef. I'm not just because I had an experience with a good cow. It's not. All of a sudden I'm not gonna go vegan or vegetarian for that. Likewise, there's a different level of reasonability when it comes to animal rights movements. So like I said, if someone had tied a dog to a post and left it there during a storm, I'd speak up against it. But for mink coats, it's our way of life. We eat cows, people eat dogs, people eat cats, people eat bats. It's their business. Just, I guess I'll conclude that I'm against unnecessarily hurting animals. So if you must kill an animal to eat it, do so in a way that is the least painful for that animal. So, yeah.
I'm going to offer some of my own thoughts, if I may, because I wasn't expecting to talk about this, but as you're sharing, let me just share one thought. Like, people who are very attuned with animals, especially those who hunt, or those who are in the wild, who document them and who are passionate about just following them, you know, many times you'll hear stories, or at least several times I've heard, of just attacks, right? Animals have attacked them. Whether it was, I can't even think of the exact animal, but
mountain lions or
whatever the animal was, whatever the species. The people who are so passionate about studying them, they never hold it against the animal. Why is that? Well, I believe that they have those people who study them and love them, they have an intrinsic understanding that animals are. They're acting by instinct, right? And that's something that, if I can just point out, this is the textbook that my son, who's in 2nd grade, is using for his school. The reason why, as you said before, it's okay to eat beef and pork and chicken, is ultimately God created animals for us to rule over them. That doesn't mean you abuse them,
Right.
okay? It does mean that, however, that they're basically to share the earth, right? But, if need be, we can eat them.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, sometimes they eat humans, but that's usually that's not the intention.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's actually a whole different aspect, which I don't have to get into. But the fundamental difference, which I love the way the book described it, the fundamental difference between people and humans and animals is, well, there are two. One, humans are made in the image of God. Okay, so we are different. We're not the same. If you don't have a worldview assuming there's God that created us, then I can totally understand why people such as PETA or animal rights activists, I can totally see why they would look at us as no better, right? Just because we're craftier and intelligent, and can find ways to harness to control animals, that doesn't mean that we're necessarily better. If you're looking from a secular worldview. But knowing that in the Bible, God stated to Adam and Eve, rule over these animals and that you have dominion over them. In fact, Adam was told to name the animals. Kind of puts it in perspective. And then the second main difference is, as I mentioned, animals work by instinct. And that's something that they know from the get-go. You'll notice that most baby elephants or calves, they can pretty much walk from the beginning, right? Mm-hmm. How is that? I mean, that's amazing. Well, a lot of it is instinct. Mm-hmm. Yes, they learn, but they learn so fast. It's almost like it's programmed in them. Mm-hmm. And I believe that it is programmed in them. Just like I think that humans have a moral conscience that it's more or less programmed in us. We know from a young age, okay, it's wrong to kill, it's wrong to steal, So yeah, animals act on instinct, not on this free will. Humans are different because we can basically make choices, and we have a conscience, right? Like we feel guilt, we feel shame, we feel all these different things that animals, they don't feel guilt or shame. They're just acting on instinct. Now they do feel pain. I think that's pretty much accepted, right? They can feel pain. I think they can cry. I'm not sure if they emotion. I'm not sure.
Most sentient animals are emotion feeling animals.
Okay.
So they are capable of crying and laughing in their own form.
Yeah.
Like dogs also laugh and smile. They just don't do it audibly like we do. But when they pant in a happy tone, that's them laughing.
Mm. Yeah. So let's move on to your thoughts on the abandoned pet, specifically stray dogs and cats. Mm-hmm. The abandoned pets issue in Korea. Your thoughts on that?
Abandoned pets are a problem everywhere, and everywhere in the world they have shelters and organizations dedicated to saving those animals and relocating them to better families. I can't speak professionally or intellectually about that, but I can speak emotionally about it. One day while I was on a road trip in Korea, in the diner that I was eating at, on the TV they showed a dog running after an SUV on the road. When I first saw that, my mind went to my time in Saudi Arabia on the power plant we were working on. There was a dog who was a mother of 7 pups at that time, and she had a little nest underneath the container offices that we were working in. Every time a large dump truck passed by, the mother would fiercely bark and run after and chase away that truck. Now obviously she wasn't chasing away the truck, it was just passing through. But the dog, I could see, was actually proud at the fact that she chased away a large animal that was a threat to her home. So when I saw that scene on the TV, the dog running after the SUV, I just figured out it's a dog being a dog. But then I read a caption that said, during summer holidays, more and more tourists are abandoning their pets. And immediately that scene was a heartbreaking scene to me, because now this dog cannot comprehend the fact that its beloved family and owner is intentionally abandoning it. So while it's running after that SUV with all its might, I can only imagine what it's thinking. This must be a mistake. No, there's no way my owner is leaving me behind. She or he is desperately running after their family, And you hear stories oftentimes when the pet is abandoned on the street, they'll wait for their family to return to them for years until they die. And usually when they're found, they're not in very good condition because they're not free. If they're wild, they'll hunt, they'll return to their habitats, and they'll go about their day. But if they're standing in one spot on the side of the road waiting for their family, obviously they're starving, they're thirsty, and they'll also experience abuse from passersby or other animals. So yes, a part of me wants to own a plantation that can take in all the abandoned animals, not only dogs, and look after them and find good homes for them. But I guess in this case, I'll have to say it's the thought that counts.
Well, thank you for your answers, Jakin. You've done quite a job here with my cheat sheet that you're also looking at. I have to give a shout out to this website that okay, here it is. It's called iteslj.org. It basically is a bunch of questions on different topics. It's designed for ESL, right? But I just looked here to see if I missed any kind of obvious types of questions. And what you said at the very end here about your intention to create a shelter,
or wish
to create a shelter. You know, there are so many things that we would love to do, and you know, they can be done, but it's a question of at what cost, right? There's always a cost. I mean, right now, I'm sure there are other priorities in your life, as in mine. So, you know, it's not to say that it's wrong, but everything kind of has its place. And for some people, maybe that's a high priority, is saving animals. For me, like my kids want to have a pet. I'm like, look, I'm having a hard enough time with the two of them. Maybe I'm just thinking too linearly. Like maybe a pet would help make them behave better or stop fighting as much. So I don't know. Maybe that's the case.
Think of a pet as a near equivalent to having kids. So having kids obviously is a difficult task. It makes life harder for parents. But does that mean that the parents wish they never had the kids? No, because having the kids brings a whole new world of emotions to the parents. So even though it's a difficult task, most parents, I would like to think, would not trade the experience of raising kids with an experience without them. Likewise, having a pet, yes, you will be bringing more onto the table. And even though your kids will love, no doubt, and do their best to look after and take care of the dog or whatever pet you end up bringing home, until they grow up and are old enough to sufficiently take care of another animal, whatever they miss will be the parents' job to pick up after. Meaning, yes, bringing home a pet will definitely add more to your plate. But a pet is not a toy for your children only, meaning that even though it's your kids who want the pet more, once you bring it home, the parents are also going to love the little thing equally. So it's just going to be an addition to the family, not a toy, an expensive toy that you buy your kids. Now, earlier you mentioned how people who study these animals, even after being attacked by one, do not resent the animals for attacking them because they understand that the animal is only acting on their instinct and not out of malice or any ill intent. And I think I'm really on board with it because whenever I witness how my parents are with Joy and how I am with Joy, there's a very distinct difference in the way we treat Joy. First of all, my parents really love Joy. They do their best to look after her and feed her, and they adore her. But to my parents, Joy is still just a dog, meaning that there are boundaries that they're not willing to let her cross. And every once in a while, or quite often, whenever she crosses those boundaries, my parents will express their anger at her. And the logic that they follow during the process of being angry at her, I realize is the logic that you would follow for a child. So I could tell that they are not exactly good at distinguishing the difference between a human being and a dog. My point is, if your expectations are high, then your disappointment and anger will also be high. Meaning, if you understand it's just an animal, and obviously it does not understand that you're not allowed to make loud noises late at night, aka barking, then when the dog barks, you will do whatever you know works to shut her up, but you will not have any residual anger about the fact that she barked at night, because obviously a dog cannot understand the situation. Likewise, whenever my parents go to bed, when they take a nap, Joy really likes to lie down next to Dad, so he'll allow her to follow him onto the bed. But at night, when they feel they need their good night's sleep, they'll kick her out of the room. In my case, ever since we got Joy, I usually sleep with my door cracked open so that during the night, if Joy wants to come cuddle or ball up next to me, she can just push open the door and come to my bed anytime she wants. Now that does result in sometimes my sleep being a little disrupted by her, but that's something I'm willing to accept. So I guess once you accept the fact that you have to have different levels of expectations depending on what species you're dealing with, it'll be much easier for you to control your emotions. Now, I will scold Joy and punish her whenever she does something wrong, but I will not emotionally get angry at her because I know that she's just a dog and she has limits to what she can understand. Whereas my parents, I can tell that they sometimes get stressed out because Joy will simply not follow certain codes or rules that they believe should be followed, but those are expectations that can be applied on humans, not dogs.
To draw one more parallel in closing, you mentioned sleeping and leaving the door cracked open for Joy and how your dad can't sleep well. Same as that issue, man. I'm telling you. Like I'm not feeling as well as I should right now because last night I slept with the kids, and when I sleep between the kids, it's absolutely a fateful night.
It's a soccer game.
Because no, it's not even them kicking me, although sometimes that happens. It's more like I'm not at ease. I'm always afraid of crushing them.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of like locked up like this. And on the other hand, when I sleep on the sofa, it's like, man, I feel great. So there's a cost benefit, man. Like I want to be with them. They want me to be with them.
A lot of other pet owners will agree with me on this.
Yeah.
What happens when Joy sleeps on my bed is she likes to lean on me. Mm-hmm. But during summer when it's hot, when she leans on me, dogs have a higher body temperature than humans, so it makes me really hot, right? So I move away from her. Then after a while, she'll come closer and put her body, she'll lean on me again. Then after a while, I'll pull away from her. After a few of that, what happens is she's sleeping in the center of my bed, and I'm on the corner leaning on the wall,
hanging off the
so
edge.
that's what's happening.
Okay.
Usually it's the one that loves something more that usually chooses the road of more resistance. So as a potential pet owner, do you have any questions, practical questions that you would like to ask an experienced owner?
Just a comment, which is that you did a pretty hard sell there for the benefits of pets, and I totally believe you, because the one I mentioned who could not have kids, he, I think, said it was his wife's idea to get the pet, and he didn't want it at first. Oh, Bill Burr's another example. Remember Bill Burr? You've heard of him talking about
he's got a child
his
now,
pit bull. He does, but before they got the child,
he had to give away the pit bull, yeah.
Well, no, comedian Bill Burr, when they got the pit bull, he didn't want anything to do with it. And then within a span of like a week or 2 weeks or whatever, it was he who was actually the one that was missing it and wanted to go for walks or, concerned and everything. So, yeah, it does have unintended consequences, that's for sure.
And how crushingly sad it was when he had to give it away for
I didn't
the
know
child.
that part.
Yeah.
Well,
it wasn't his last special, I think.
Okay.
He got married, then they gave birth to his first child, and because of the child, they decided a pit bull is pretty aggressive, right? And we've heard some stories of, even in Korea, of some of the more ferocious species biting an infant to death because it thought it was an intruder when it was the owner's newborn baby. Now,
all right. Well, another great episode. Thank you for being the first interviewee and special guest of the JnJ Ep9 podcast. slash YouTube channel slash what is this called? Show. Okay?
Yep.
And I guess that's it for now, so I'll see you when I see you.
Sooner rather than later.
I'm in
such a goofy movie.